Warning. The following live stream is intended for an uncommon audience. If you are allergic to bold ideas, unique perspectives, or strong opinions, you are advised not to watch any further, as these could result in symptoms, including feeling triggered, loss of wokeness, or commenting in all caps. Those suffering from religious zealotitis, pseudosyphilis, or geocentric tardation should stop watching immediately and seek professional help. This is non sequitur. Never follow.
Hello, 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 everyone. You are watching Non Sequitur. We have quite the show for you this evening. It's going to be fun and interesting, and I have so many questions. But before we get to that, Steve McRae is with us, I guess.
I usually am, yeah. I'm still here.
Yeah. Okay, good. I'm glad you are. Dave is producing.
Dude, I'm not worried about you not being here. They thought you were going to take you away and the government would take you away. So we're just very thankful the government has not decided to execute you. Thank you, Jesus, or Odin, or whatever atheists pray to. I'll do that for Eric.
I tell you, after last night's stream, I kind of wish that they would have. I mean, I would have been all for them coming and picking me up and taking me out to wherever you take people to get stoned. That was painful.
That would have been a merciful killing. Yeah, you're right.
I have some news to convey to you guys though. Upon further inflection and some serious thought, just to catch up to speed. Last night we left on the fact that we were going to come back in a month with Russian vids, and in that meantime we were going to do some experiments together, all of us, and try to show him that the earth is indeed round. And he was all for it. Last night, I got a message this morning saying that he had thought about it and he just didn't see the benefit in those experiments. So,
shocker.
Oh, man.
He will not be back with us. He has kindly forfeited. I don't know how you maintain your position. However, if we did those experiments, he really couldn't stick to the kind of position that he was in before either. So I guess he did the right thing, maybe. But anyway, it saved us a headache, so that's good. We have with us tonight, Ocean Keltoi, the Pagan, Viking, polytheist, Odin, Thor, hammers, shields, swords, Norse ships. All
Are
of
you
that.
just saying words now? Like, is that?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I absolutely am. Thank you for joining us. And from Talk Heathen, this guy is a lot of fun. Where's the voice of God? This would be the perfect opportunity for you to be the voice of God right now, Eric. Eric Murphy.
I am Eric Murphy. One of the hosts of Talk Heathen that you can check out every Sunday, 1 p.m. Central. And you can call in. Dude, guys, thank you so much for having me back. I'm really excited about tonight.
Sure,
I'm really excited too.
And,
yes.
Yeah.
We're going to let you guys formally introduce yourselves and your channels here in just a second. Guys, if you haven't yet, please subscribe down below. We are on the cusp of 9,000, so that's awesome. I think we're 15 away, Steve, somewhere on there.
We are at 8,977, but I'm not looking right now. I'm looking right now.
Okay, awesome. So if you could, let's hit 9,000 before this stream ends. You can follow us on Twitter. That's at NonSec Show. That's NonSeq Show. Also, you can make sure that you never miss one of our live streams. We're trying to get it to where they're all at 8 o'clock Eastern. Sometimes that fluctuates depending on what guests we have. But you can check that schedule to be sure at nonsecshow.com/schedule. Again, that's NonSeq show.com/schedule. Okay, we're going to go through what we've got coming up for the next couple of days. Then we'll get right on into introducing these fine fellas officially. Tomorrow, what's tomorrow? Tuesday. Digital Hammurabi will be joining us for a talk about Zechariah Sitchin and Nibiru. They recently did a video on ancient aliens and debunking them. It was really good, so they're going to kind of come back and go through that with us. That's Dr. Joshua Bowen and his wife Megan. They will be here tomorrow on Wednesday. Wednesday's the big day. Okay, we're going to go in reverse order. So at 10 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, we're having a double header tomorrow. Rick DeLong, who was the producer of the somewhat controversial movie The Principle that came out a few years back, about the Earth being in the center of the universe and everything rotates around it. He's got a new movie coming out called The End of Quantum Reality. He will be with us tomorrow at 10 p.m. And that's going to follow the Richard Carrier.
Wednesday. It's Wednesday.
Right. What did I say, tomorrow? Yeah. Good
you
call.
said tomorrow.
My bad.
Thank you. I paid attention for a change. Yes.
That's how excited I am. Yeah. You get a gold star, Steve.
Thank you.
But prior to that, we will have Richard Carrier here to go a little bit more in depth into our Is Doubt a Virtue, which we all decided it most certainly is. But Richard Carrier seems to think that there might be a little bit more to that. That's Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. And then on Thursday, big day Thursday, 5 Eastern, Sargon of Akkad will be here to debate Brittany Simon on social justice, feminism, and intersectionality. Brittany's a lovely person, as we've seen on Twitter today. I'm very excited to have her here and Sargon as well. So join us for that at 5 p.m. Eastern. Okay. There we go. Now, let's get into what I think is probably going to be one of my favorite talks to get into. There's so many. I have so many questions, Ocean. But let's start off.
Oh dear.
Let's start off on the shallow end. I'm going to let you introduce yourself, kind of give us a little bit of background on you and why you are the center of our discussion tonight.
Well, I guess you let me know this is gonna happen about 4 hours ago, so I'm like, but
I did.
I'm a Germanic polytheist, and I've been around kind of the great debate community for some time, as I've been kind of known as the token polytheist in a number of discussions. I don't know I think that's because we're really rare. And so on, but a lot of us don't really jump into the great debate world too much, but I'm one of the few that kind of has. With that, one of the things that I've been pushing for is in the great debate community is that polytheism is a rational and reasonable position, and one that is at least worthy of respect in this conversation. And in a lot of discussions that I've had, I think that I've at least gotten to that point. Now, whether or not I'm convincing people or any of that, that's kind of up to whoever's listening. But my main goal is just to be like, well, polytheism can be a rational position. It can be something that's worthy of respect. And that's ultimately what I want to do.
Cool. All right. Mr. Murphy.
Yo.
Will you please let the people know who you are and why you're so fucking cool?
Well, you know what? I see all the names that are going out, and I took a look at the stuff that you guys have done, and if you got me on here, you are scraping the bottom of the barrel. I apologize, but I'm happy to be here.
Oh, no. We scraped the bottom of the barrel last night.
Eric, you need a really good pseudonym. Do you have a really good pseudonym? Like everybody else has a cool pseudonym, you know? You got Mr. Atheist, you got Logic, you got, Prophet of Zod. What's your pseudonym, dude?
He has Dirty Heathen as his Twitter handle, which I've discovered, which makes me curious.
That could make a whole, that's a whole different.
We'll let the man introduce himself before we attack him.
No. Well, let's let the people decide. I know that I do have nicknames, and I have a nickname that I only share with close friends and family. I can share with you guys off the air, but if people want to come up with one, that's absolutely fine. I know that early on, when Jamie and I were first getting ready to do Talk Heathen. By the way, I'm one of the hosts of Talk Heathen, and because I want to help promote Talk Heathen and all of that, I'm at the Atheist Community of Austin right now. This is the set that you normally see for Talk Heathen. But Jamie told me when I called him and I said, do you think either of us could ever be as big as Sam Harris? And he said, No. You can be the first Eric Murphy. You don't need to be the second Sam Harris. And I just lost my shit, and it's stuck with me ever since. So I like being me, but if someone wants to nickname me, that's fine. Why am I here? Why am I so fucking excited? Okay, aw. I'm gonna call you Sugar Lump if you do that.
This is getting weird already.
Over here. Okay. So what I wanted to say was the reason I'm really excited about this is because I don't get to talk to a lot of polytheists. And I know for people who have seen Talk Heathen, if you haven't, shame on you. But if you have, you've seen that whenever I talk to a theist, I really want to get at the epistemology behind it. I want to see if it is a rational position. Ocean, you said that it can be a rational position. So I'm really, really interested to see what that is, because while I respect you, I will respect you as a person. I do not think that ideas are necessarily deserving of respect. And so if that comes off as a personal attack, I just want to make sure that you know that if you have fucking ridiculous ideas, I will say so. Not as cruelly, I'll actually back it up, but you know, it's just kind of one of those things. I want to be able to show people that nobody should be afraid of ideas, that ideas are things that we should be able to interact with, that we should be able to question and jump into and explore together. Because when you take something off the table, that's when it gets some, you know, holy status. And I don't think anything should be lifted to the devil.
Starting to wonder, am I dealing with somebody that's going to be like the aggressive atheist kind of situation now? So, but I guess I haven't had like a conversation with you. I've seen like you deal with creationists and stuff on Talk Heathen before.
Yeah,
but I don't know. It's have you bumped into a religious position that you feel is rational?
Not one that follows a like mainstream. Like there are people who've called in who said, "Oh, I think that God is like the universe," and and I say, "So is there any magic involved, or is there?" And they go, "No, it's just the universe." And I go, "Okay, yeah, I believe you're God." But
you're talking about like a Spinoza's God sort of situation, right?
Yeah,
like
but if we're
God is the laws of nature kind of thing.
Yeah, which I think is a complete misuse of the word. But if you're saying that, if you're claiming that a thing happened, right, you need to have evidence for it, and you need to apportion the evidence, or you should apportion your belief to the evidence. And so we can get into that as we talk, but that's kind of my position up front. I'm usually not a really mean guy, but you'll see. Don't worry. We're going to get along. Ocean, I want to be friends with you. You seem like a really cool fucking guy. Your level of bearding is just
I'm really mad at everything that you represent, but oh my God, we're going to be friends. We're going to be cool. All right. No, you're good.
Absolutely.
I'm sure we'll have a good conversation.
He said the E word. Nobody noticed. He said the E word, Kyle, and you didn't get triggered. I'm so proud of you.
What's the
epistemology? Epistemology?
Did we just talk about epistemology?
I didn't catch it. Okay, shut it down, Dave. Shut it down. What?
Shut it down. Game over. Thanks for joining us. See you tomorrow.
Have a good night, everybody. Good show, guys. So much for that.
Okay,
we're getting shut down by Kyle. It's over.
Okay. So, I'm not sure who we need to start. Well, I guess we need to start with you, Ocean, to kind of explain your position and what exactly it is that you follow, because I'm curious myself. And I'll hold my questions until the end, so that way you and Eric can kind of have a free-flowing conversation without me interrupting. But just go ahead and kind of state what it is that you believe, what you follow, and all that stuff, and then we'll go from there.
I guess where do you want me to start? I guess there's a couple of places that I can start. So, I guess to kind of reintroduce myself, I'm a Germanic polytheist. That means that I hold to the Germanic traditions, which is commonly called heathenry, as a religious movement. And what that entails is basically belief in gods such as Odin, Thor, Frigg, Freya, and numerous others. So how I've kind of come to that position was through a fairly long journey that had several stops along the way in Christianity. I went from Baptist to Methodist to Episcopalian, and eventually Celtic Christian, and then fell into paganism. as a result of a few religious experiences. And from there, I've been heathen for about 10 years, and I've been contributing to the heathen community through making sources available for other heathens, running a couple of Discord servers, which help to that aim, as well as helping start a local community that caters to numerous heathen traditions, such as the Slavic tradition, Icelandic tradition, or Anglo-Saxon, and as well as other traditions of Germanic heathenry, or Germanic polytheism, also known as heathenry. And that group is.
I want to ask you real quick,
focused in
Ocean.
Atlanta. Sure.
Do you see now why I wanted to pair you two? Your heathenry, that's your religion.
Because of Talk Heathen.
Talk Heathen.
Yeah. Right. No, I wanted. I think I sent you a message saying we should have this be called Talk Heathenry.
Well, technically, Ocean, aren't you an atheist? I mean, somebody called you an atheist, right? I mean,
somebody called me an atheist on Twitter today because I believe in multiple gods and not the Christian gods. So that's a lot of fun.
That's not how that works.
No, Ocean, I'm sorry, buddy, but there can be only one.
Sorry. Oh my God.
Two heathens walk in, one heathen walks out. Let's do this.
Is that what we're going to do? Okay. Wow. So
I will not abuse that, I promise.
We've already done it twice. And how long has this been going? Is it like 5 minutes?
It's going to be a long night for you.
Anyway.
Seems like longer.
I can tell. So anyway, the local group that we've started, we provide we call bloats, which is just group rituals, or moots, which is basically just meetings of pagans where we all kind of sit down, drink, talk with each other, share experiences, and have a kind of fellowship, because society isn't necessarily catering to us. So those are a lot of the things that I do outside of this, and I guess beyond that, let's jump into it.
Okay, Eric, I'm gonna let you. Do you have any questions, Eric?
I have all of the questions, but I want to be respectful and make sure that you'll have time to talk about what you want to as well before I dive in. I don't want to take over.
I'll ask my questions at the end. I figured this would be better to have kind of like a talk between you two, and then me and Steve will catch up on the end.
Okay. Awesome. All right. So Ocean, I guess my first question to you is, do you believe the stories and traditions to be factually true in the world that we live in?
So we have a kind of interesting position on that. A lot of the texts that we have there's a number, and some of them are behind me here where I can motion to them if I want to just say, well, books. But so there's the Prose Edda, which is written by Snorri Sturluson in I believe around the 14th century, and the Poetic Edda, which was copied over by Snorri as well, and around the same time. These books are translated and kept by Christians, and the Poetic Edda was kind of discovered in a monastery by Snorri. So it's something that somebody wrote down at some point. We don't know exactly when, and there it is. And what we have left are the copies. We don't have the original text that Snorri found. We've compared some of these texts with archaeology as far as what gods were worshipped in certain areas in other books. One is the Danish Histories by Saxo Grammaticus, and another Christian who also wrote down some of the legends of Nordic and Anglo-Saxon lore. And beyond that, we also have the Icelandic sagas and a few other sagas that were also written down by Christians. So a lot of these texts that we have Christian influenced language in them. And beyond that as well, we don't really consider them to be holy texts in the same way that Christians or Muslims do. Like with Muslims referencing the Quran, or with Christians referencing the Bible, often they hold a sort of infallibility aspect to them, and heathens don't do that with our own texts. It's more about inference from experience, and then the texts are something that we compare those experiences to. It's something that pops up in Christian history through a thinker called Pagans, where he was talking about comparing your own experiences to the Bible. But he was thrown out of the Catholic Church for such a ridiculous idea.
So I guess what I appreciate the history. I know a fair bit about it. I looked up a bit before we started, if I'm going to be dead honest. But I guess that did you partially answer the question. The question that I really wanted to ask is, do you believe that the pantheon there in your religion is real? Do you think that Zeus is a real person who is breathing today? Not Zeus.
Well, Zeus
Odin.
is not.
Sorry, I'm a dick.
Yeah,
yeah, Odin.
Hellena's pantheon. To put it simply, I don't disbelieve in Zeus. But Zeus is not something that I actively worship.
Can you say that? I'll get into in the positive that Odin. Yes. Do you believe that Odin is a real person?
I do believe that Odin exists. As far as alive,
in the world that we live in.
I believe that the gods are immaterial, so that depends on what your position is on whether or not that means the world we live in. So,
well, an idea
like
can exist. If you
believe that the universe is material, everything in the universe is material, then Odin would not exist in this universe because he's immaterial. But it just depends on your semantics. Is all that it is. But I do believe in the.
Actually, that's
I actively believe in the gods, if that's what you're asking.
Well, so semantics here are incredibly important, right? So if you say that these gods are completely immaterial, what other things fall into the category of immaterial?
Immaterial would be anything that's not material. So pretty much all concepts in general would be
okay.
Like,
so if I think of like
squares and circles are immaterial. So
so if I imagine a pink unicorn. If I imagine a pink unicorn, does it exist at the same level that your pantheon of gods exists at?
No, because I think that there's an interaction between the gods and humans. And I think that that's a distinction also between gods and, say, the Jotun or some other... like, there's a lot of like supernatural entities that heathens believe in. And among them would be the Jotun, which are more like malevolent natural forces. And
okay, do you believe that these immaterial things interact with our material world? Is that what you're saying?
I'm fairly agnostic as to how, but I think that through spiritual experiences that myself and others have experienced through ritual or through prayer or through sort of randomly happening in the calling that a lot of us sort of experience. That's something that I think that there's an interaction there, and that's an interaction that I trust.
Do you trust it in the same way that you trust like other things in your life? Because I understand that anecdotal evidence, personal experience can be very powerful, right? But that doesn't mean that we should assign a truth value to it that's any more than this. I
don't think it should be taught in the schools, if that's what you're suggesting. Like,
well, no.
There's not a method for establishing it that's on that. Okay.
So at the core of it, you said that you're agnostic on how an immaterial thing can interact with the material world, right? Mm-hmm. So why are you so sure of something that you don't know? Because unless we can point at it in our material world, you know what I mean? Wouldn't the honest thing be, this is really cool, and I feel a sense of community and a pride to it. I love the stories, and I feel like those things and the way that I interact with those texts has helped me and the people and the community that I've created. But other than that, they are stories. That's fantastic. I'm not putting down the experience that you have with other people. What I'm putting down and what I'm trying to say is that we should never positively assert something, especially if you have no, like, if it doesn't exist or if it's the same as not existing in the real world, then we need to give it that same value, right? It's the same value as Harry Potter. Somebody could get that.
Like the immaterial versus the material aspect of it. I mean, I think that the Harry Potter comparison is a little ludicrous, but
I don't.
Okay.
Somebody put forward an amazing story behind it that has a lot to do with empathy and kindness, that has a lot to do with humility and bravery and putting others people forward. It has to do with standing up when other people are oppressed. It has to do with reaching out, and all of these different amazing
that there's good lessons you can learn from Harry Potter. I don't deny that, but that's not the same thing that is being expressed in the heathen stories, because a lot of these are based in history, or they're based in, like, a lot of the people that we're referencing in the sagas are people that existed. Eric the Red, for example. Ragnar Lothbrok is considered a legendary character, but a lot of his sons existed. So like Ragnar Lothbrok, we have more evidence of him than we I get in trouble with Christians when I say this, but I think we have more evidence of Ragnar Lothbrok than we have of Jesus, and he's still considered a legendary character because we have references to Ragnar Lothbrok's sons directly. We have references to him attacking France, and there's records of him attacking Northumbria.
Sounds like you have infinitely more evidence for that than Jesus.
He's missing in the list of kings is the problem. So, and he's considered to be a king, but his sons are people that definitely existed. Ivar the Boneless, Bjorn Ironside. These are Vikings that we know existed. So we have, I think that there's a good connection there. Eric the Red is somebody who we know discovered Greenland. Stories of him seem to be true. Freydis Erik's daughter, Leif Erikson, are also attestations to that figure.
These are badass names.
So we're talking about like the humans. We're talking about the humans that these stories reference. You know, there's not much reason to doubt them. The question is whether or not you're doubting the gods that the stories also attest to at the same time. And from the perspective of personal experience and combined with historical literature, that's where a lot of heathens kind of find sort of verification. We have a system as far, because where you're talking about like asserting knowledge, where we have there's the system of UPG, SPG, and VPG. Now, UPG stands for unverified personal gnosis. Unverified personal gnosis is simply a personal experience that you've had that doesn't have any reference. You don't know anybody else has had the same experience that can verify what you're talking about, and there's no historical text that verifies what you're talking about. But if you find somebody else that has the same UPG that you have had, that becomes SPG, which is shared personal gnosis. And that's that that personal experience is now verified by another person's personal experience. And assuming that the two of you are honest, that means that there's a sort of a verification there that's very simple, but it's not something that you could say verify through scientific empiricism. Beyond that, you also have referencing historical sources, that if your personal experience is then validated in those historical sources, or at least related to them, given that these sources are often written by Christians, that becomes verified personal gnosis, which is that you have a backing for what your UPG originally has represented. And
Could you give me an example of a UPG?
A bit of a structure to that. UPG would be, say, receiving an inspiration during prayer, for example. That's that you feel like Thor is pushing you towards something or something like that. And that would be UPG. Or UPG could also be a theory that you've gotten from reading the texts. Say that, you know, Thor's direct representation is such and such. And that's something that if you find as a representation in the Eddas, then that becomes verified, but it's not until you have that kind of verification. So there's a little bit of a system that we have for building that kind of thing that gets us, because we are dealing with things that are as far from a scientific perspective or from a scholastic study perspective, very difficult to actually quantify. So there's
I'm just asking you to quantify it at all. Until there's a quanta to FI,
what
then I really don't see any reason to I mean, put anything more into it than I would any other books that I got a lot of edification from. And I mean that, I understand this means a lot to you, and I'm trying not to put you down here, but you're using a reasoning that I hear a lot of Christians say, oh, when I felt touched by Jesus when I was praying, or you have groups of Christians who will get together during revival. I verify that
for Christians. And for Christians, that's fine. I don't have an argument with them on that. The argument that I have with Christians, if they have a edification during prayer, then I believe that they've experienced some kind of God. That's fine. I don't have an issue with that. The issue that I take with Christians is why?
Why? Because I care about true things, not about feelings. And whether somebody has a good feeling or not, look, dude, I have gotten high on some fucking psychedelics, and I have seen some shit. And I know none of those things actually happened, right? Like right
now.
Actually, not right now. I'm
not
very
talking about
dry.
You. I'm talking about me.
Oh, fucking good on you, dude! I like you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes. Okay. Anyway, I feel like I'm with my people.
Oh boy, I'm sorry.
No, don't. So I mean, it really does matter to me that you've moved into, you know, this shared space, that it matters to me a lot because it's magical thinking. What you are demonstrating to me so far is magical thinking, and I don't see anything good about it. I don't, because I don't think it's based in reality. I think it's based in wishes and hopes, but I don't think it's based in reality. And what I want to dive into is what you can show me means that it's true. You know, what I can see, what can I do tonight to experience that, so that I know that it is true versus some other deities being true, or if they're all true or none is true. This is what I'm trying to get to the core of, because I want to know why you believe what you believe, and if that is sound reasoning.
I think that we can have a system for falsifying deities as far as coherency is concerned, if that's what if that's a problem that you're taking with it. But I'm somebody who believes that if you're going to be holding a God belief, there needs to be some form of justification with it. And experience is a form of justification. I do not know of any kind of evidence that is not experienced. So when we're talking about something that is immaterial, then experience is going to be the first thing that we're dealing with. It's based on a seeming. And I'm not going to be saying that I have any knowledge beyond a shadow of a doubt that gods are true. That doesn't, that's not a claim that I'm willing to make. It's not a claim that I have made.
Well, you're an intellectually honest human being, and I appreciate that, which is one of the reasons I'm happy to be talking to you.
What I'm willing to do, though, is embrace experience when it comes, when it's something that's a bit of a mystery. And I think that when, with the spiritual experiences that I've had, spiritual experiences that people I know have had, and spiritual experiences that seem to be, that I share in common with people that hold the same traditions, that's something that's worth exploring to me. It's not something, it's not something that I'm willing to simply throw away because we can't have a scientific ontology for it. And even if the claims were true, let's assume for a second that gods are real, as far as your perspective is concerned. I'm not sure how we would be able to demonstrate them, given their description of being immaterial entities. So if we have the idea of immaterial entities that are able to communicate with humans, then I've often asked atheists, what evidence are you looking for, if not experience?
Got it. Well, let me take that back, because you've said a couple things and I want to answer them, and I'm afraid that I'm going to lose them if I don't jump in. So you're ending with what does an atheist want to see that's not other than experience, right? Experiential.
Not necessarily. So as far as not that you're going to believe yourself, but that you'll at least respect the position of a religious person.
Yeah. Well, I want to get to the earlier thing you said so that I don't lose it. But I'm glad you're holding on to that, because if I forget, I need you to remind me, okay? Because I want to answer it. So here's my problem. Jonestown. My problem is Moonies. My problem is cults, because that's the response that cults give to justify people accepting the things that they do. Now, they don't do what you're doing, which is openly, honestly speaking and not trying to keep people in the compound, but we shared an experience and therefore it is valid. Our brains just aren't built that way. Our brains are built to have these psyched out experiences, post-hoc rationalizations. You know, these after the fact going, oh no, this is what I saw, or this is what happened, or I felt really good. We talked about it, and this is the story. No one's lying there, you know, and there it's been shown time and time and time again in different churches where people say, oh, hey, you know, an angel came down and we all saw the angel. But when it gets down to the nitty gritty, no, they all just after the fact convinced themselves that it happened. And so my question back on that, and I want to answer everyone that you had, I just want to, you know, address each piece. My question back on that would be, does anything separate you between them? And what can you see why that is so important to me to point out that it's not okay to say that this kind of experience justifies a belief or necessarily a respect? And then the second piece. Yeah, go ahead and answer.
Okay. Yeah. I think that if you're going to be holding a position that, you know, we shouldn't hold to any logical position when you can have a bad inference come from it at some point, that's rings of consequentialism to me, and I don't think that that's a good way to measure. I think that you can definitely come to bad conclusions based on sound logic. That's obvious. And I'm in agreement with you about that with regards to Jonestown. I think that you can demonstrate that maybe Jonestown had sound logic, but it was applied in a way that has a negative result. And I think that if you have a lookout for that, that's something that you know, it's preventable. But it's something that you also have to do with regards to science. There's an ethics to science, right? There's experiments that you can do in which you can yield interesting results, but they're unethical to do. Cloning, for example, is a conversation that's being had as to whether or not that's ethical.
Wouldn't it be easier to say
that it should be done, for example?
I gotcha. No, I'm sorry. There's a bit of a delay. I'm really not trying to be a dick.
Yeah. So we're stepping over each other.
Are you saying that being a dick?
No, it's okay as long as we're good.
You're not trying for it, Eric? You're not trying to
no, that's my co-host's job.
Like that's with me.
That's
I knew you.
Mine too.
Okay.
Mine too.
Yeah, exactly.
Mine too.
That's what the co-host is for. Thank you. We know now.
So Ocean, I guess my question back there is, wouldn't it be better? You said that the people at Jonestown were acting logically. Did I catch that correctly? That they were,
if we talked about their
logically consistent.
If they affirm through experience, if they confirm through experience, then that would be logical. But
so wouldn't that be
I think that
very
flawed... as far as Jonestown, if you're saying logic is flawed, then we have another conversation to have. But
no, I'm saying that the view that personal experience leads to truth or truth values of any kind is a flawed one to have. And I gave you an example that.
What evidence do you have?
Let each other finish. Experience? Let each other finish, please.
Sure.
Okay, Eric.
I just gave you one.
I'm
sorry. No, I might not have gotten your question. Could you ask again?
I said, what evidence can you gain that isn't through personal experience?
Well, I can learn from reading a book. I can be taught it. I can learn those things outside of them, outside of actually doing it.
So you don't experience reading a book. You don't experience being taught. Is that what I'm getting?
Okay. Now that's interesting. The last time I heard that argument, I was talking to someone who people thought was Matt Slick. Do you think that?
Oh no.
Yeah, because
I've gotten into arguments with Matt Slick before. We've had some really interesting back and forths.
Yeah,
no, it's not a precept situation. I'm not presupposing God here. I'm
not asking if you're.
I don't think I'm presupposing necessarily anything. I'm just saying that experience is our main mode of learning, if not the only mode of learning.
So there are. Hold on, let me get my thoughts together. I know this is really bad TV.
It happens to me all the time. I forgot Steve's name.
Do you want to bring up your
there one time?
Can I make a clarification that I think matters
twice?
As far as
twice. Wait a minute, Eric. Do you want to bring out your balls right now? Is this a good time to bring out your balls? It's up to you.
Look, I'm only going to whip them out if I get to plug my Patreon. Okay.
Absolutely. If it helps you focus.
I think I want to make 2 points that I think that I want to make a couple of clarifications.
Sure.
One, that I think experience is the only way that we're going to be able to learn anything, and I don't think that when we're talking about like reading a book or something like that's something that we gain through experience. We're reading something or we're being taught something, and I think that's a point that's good to keep in mind. Secondly, I want to also make sure that it's known that these are positions that I hold provisionally. That polytheism is a provisional belief as far as I'm concerned. If somebody can put forward something to me that shows that polytheism is false or incoherent, then I'm going to be leaving that faith. That I'm not interested in holding a position that is false or incoherent. So, but as it stands, I'm willing to trust experiences and move forward with at least experimentation in a provisional setting.
Got it. Okay. So, Steve, Ocean, help me here. I'm having a brain fart and it's incredibly embarrassing.
Well, okay, let me ask you this. Okay, if I kind of guide it back a little bit. Ocean, are you insinuating there's nothing as a priori knowledge? I mean, you're saying everything is observational, which is a posteriori by our senses. Are you saying that we can't have a priori knowledge?
Say that, like, you know that you exist or something like that?
Yeah. I mean, without having...
I think that you can know that you exist.
Certain things we can know without having derived it a posteriori, right? I mean, would you agree upon that?
Right. I would agree with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, I think you just asked it. Can something be known outside of... I'd like to know your answer to that question, because it seems like that's an unfalsifiable statement unless you start to bring up the way that we get to knowledge. I mean, what's the point? Yeah, go ahead.
I think the way we get to a lot of knowledge, at least, is through experiencing it. If we have an experience and then someone has, in the case of reading something or being taught something, there is somebody who performed an experiment, and in order to perform an experiment, they had to experience the experiment. And pagans as well will do forms of experimentation when it comes to ritual, that there needs to be some kind of verification from the people that are experiencing the ritual that it was effective. And if nobody is having that, then clearly there's something wrong in what's being done, or that there's a hiccup somewhere, and there needs to be an investigation as far as what that hiccup is. Now, if the hiccup is that the God doesn't exist, then that's an interesting kind of position. But I haven't found a situation in which that's the verifiable conclusion. And the problem is, I will admit that this is an extremely difficult place in order to figure out any sort of like verification or falsifiability. And as far as with Christianity goes, there are ways of falsifying. I think that Christianity, in the claims that they have around their God, specifically around the omnis, you can falsify through showing incoherence with the Trinity, or with omnibenevolence and omnipotence, kind of combining those things. With polytheism, polytheism doesn't fall to a lot of those arguments. So that's a reason that I hold it to be more likely, at least, than monotheism, especially with, in reference to seemings, people experience them. It seems to be that there is some kind of supernatural force that people interact with or experience, and I'm willing to go with it as far as the puzzle is concerned, again, provisionally.
So you're saying people interact with these hold on. So how are people having interactions if you don't know how they're having them? I'm sorry, this is tangential to the thing that I wanted to bring up, but what blows my mind is you're saying people are having experiences. Yeah, sure. What I wanted to bring up was inductive logic versus deductive logic. I could not, for the life of me, you could put a gun to my head and I could not have said deductive logic for some fucking reason. But the argument was, how can you ever get to deductive logic, right? If our only experiences can lead us to inductive reasoning, right? And so I have an answer to that, but that felt very, very close to what you were asking. What do you know that isn't caused by experience? And so my question to you is, how would you answer that? Because I feel like our answers to that could answer a lot of why we're not seeing eye to eye on this.
Okay, what's the specific question again? So you're, as far as what my answer to is?
Sure. How can you ever get from inductive to deductive?
I don't think you can.
Okay, but is deductive logic a thing?
Yeah. I think that if you assume premises before you get to the, like, we're like we've discussed axioms with a theist before, I imagine. So you know, you have some premises that you hold to be true because these seem to be universally held. From there you can get into deductive logic.
Right.
Like that the universe exists or something like that, that we can learn from it. And I think a lot of that holds in it that you should be trusting experience. And if not, then what are we doing?
We're doing our best to learn as many true things and as few false things about the world that we're in. That's what we're doing.
Right.
And the tentative view that you expressed was you'll stop believing when it gets proven false. But you know that that doesn't make a whole lot of sense when it comes to proving a thing false. It's that you're putting yourself in a position that you're never going to be able to get through. Sure, I can demonstrate that right now. Why? Because people are saying
it makes zero sense. That's interesting.
It does. I know, right?
You guys, you seem to be getting, is he getting into like the problem of induction now? Are we going into Kantian philosophy of some kind? I think that we
kind of are, and we might be getting into an area that that's going to start getting over my head. But because I'll just go ahead and admit that I'm not an expert on that particular area of philosophy. I haven't dived into that. But I'm just trying to figure out like what is. There seems to be a problem that you're holding with my position as far as engaging with seemings, and even provisionally. And I don't understand why that's a problem.
Well, because I don't put very much stock into personal experience, especially when you're talking to me. I mean, if you want to talk to somebody who does, cool, but I'm here, right? I don't put very much stock into personal experience because personal experience does not necessarily lead you to truthful things. We are flawed. We are just human beings. And by working together, we can learn more true things about the world than false. And so in this conversation, we are working together to determine whether or not your belief in this pantheon of deities is justified. And so what I've gotten so far out of it is it makes people feel good. They say that they've had experiences that they can't explain or that they're attributing to a deity, but they can't show how, they can't demonstrate that it's happened. There's no physical evidence or proof that could be studied. And because of that, it just needs to be enough that it gives you good feelings. Am I wrong? Please tell me where I messed up.
Then help me. I'm talking about engaging with the experience. I'm not talking about whether or not it makes you feel good.
Okay.
Like whether or not it makes you feel good, it can make you feel bad.
Okay.
So, you know, say somebody engages in a prayer and they feel there's a response or a presence. A lot of the experiences that I'm familiar with deal with an overwhelming presence in people that are otherwise mentally stable. So when dealing with that sort of situation, and people generally trust at face value their experiences unless there's a reason against it. Now you can provide probably some good reasons against it, and it's going to be whether or not the individual that's had this situation agrees with those things, like whether or not it was a fluke hallucination, or there was a drug involved or something like that. But I'm generally, when talking about spiritual experiences, I want to talk about things that don't have a drug relationship or things that are not engaged with due to a mental illness. And we still have spiritual experiences when we eliminate those things. And people that trust those spiritual experiences and then move forward with at least an experimentation and exploration into that experience, I don't see what the problem could be with investigating that, even from a religious standpoint.
Well, so let me correct, because if I think I may have said something that I don't agree with, and if I did, I need to apologize. There's nothing wrong with investigating anything. There is something wrong with presupposing what you think the source of that thing was.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if I have what can be described as a mystical experience, the more honest thing for me to do is say something happened and I don't know what that was. Not that, because I'm used to talking to Christians, they'll say that was God intervening in my life. And that just brings in so many assumptions. So let's say you're praying, right? And you have a feeling wash over you, or you have an idea pop into your head while you're praying. Would you say that qualifies as a mystical experience that you think is caused by one of your deities? Or it could be? And how do you determine that from...
So I'm praying and then there's a response. So first off, I'm going to say as well that there's no surefire way of determining these things. Usually what happens, especially with heathens, and the thing that I think is most interesting about heathens is that we seem to kind of like come to these positions independently. It's not really a brainwashing kind of thing that happens. It's a something that we sort of come to the religion independently and then we come together, which I think is unique from other religions where it seems like people join it or they're convinced by other people. We seem to be convinced by experiences in our past. And I recently kind of reached out to a few heathens in my community of this, like, so what brought you to this? And that seems to be the common theme, is that they felt a calling of some kind. And then through investigation, they realized that the experiences they had are very similar to the experiences described in these ancient texts. So they're willing to play the game, roll the dice and explore on that end. And heathens, in my experience, are usually very logical people, and from that perspective, that they hold the position provisionally, that they're interested in it, they're exploring it, and a lot of times they wind up convinced, even though they haven't thoroughly investigated it or read all the texts or anything like that, and they're usually hungry for more knowledge. And that's one of the things that I do on the at least Discord servers and in Facebook groups and so on, is provide them with resources in order to explore a little bit further. It's like, is this the right thing for you? Investigate further. There's a buzzing going on. I was attempting to answer your question, but I got caught on a tangent. We were talking about the association with the experience into the particular God. Is that what we were kind of going into?
Yeah, and how you can tell the difference between that experience and not. And you answered that right away. You went off on a tangent, but it was an interesting one. I wanted to listen.
Okay.
I
wanted to make sure that I answered your question before I
You did. The answer that I got from it was no. There's no way to tell.
Right. And I think that that's something that is important to know as a pagan experimenting in this, that you're not going to be able to like necessarily hold, like there's a leap that you make when you're joining a tradition. And as far as like particular God that you're making an attestation to. Now, I think that polytheism as a concept in and of itself is something that can be is a little bit easier to attest to as far as making at least a logical truth claim, because of the myriad of spiritual experiences that we have around the world. From that, we can say, well, if we have these, let me preface it real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we have lots of people having spiritual experiences that are, again, not related to drugs and otherwise mentally stable people. Can we agree on that?
You need to define what a spiritual experience is before I agree with it.
That overwhelming presence that I described earlier of, like, you know, the person feels that there is a representation of something else that's near them, and it bequeaths them with, say, a feeling or a state of emotion, that they're in that experience they're associating with something external to them. Sure.
Okay, you need to prove
so you
that
know
they're
roughly what I'm
with
talking
something
about.
external to them. Yeah, I do, and I don't.
And that's
see any value
totally
or
dependent
truth.
on the agent that's experiencing it.
One sec, you guys are kind of talking past each other. Ocean's just asking you to accept what he's calling this. You don't have to like actually think that it exists or not.
You don't have to accept that it is.
Right?
That's
Right.
that people attest to it is what I'm talking about.
There are people that are saying
now whether you could totally take a lot of people's spiritual experiences and then say, well, here's another way to explain them, by saying that it was induced somehow. My throat's drying out. That it was induced somehow, or that you know, this is a fluke mental state in someone who is otherwise mentally stable. So there's a number of ways that you could kind of play that, but with respect to the argument that I'm presenting, it's that we have this claim that pops up from multiple places around the world that seem to be attesting to different things. Would that be something at least you find accurate? Because we have people that would honestly attest to Kali. We have people that honestly attest to Thor or Jehovah, Yahweh, Allah, whatever.
If someone honestly attests to those things and does not have evidence that they can show for it, I would not call them logical people. You said that there are plenty of logical people, but without
experience
and empirical evidence.
One second, Ocean. Let him get his thought out.
No.
So you're going to be holding this is where theists usually go into solipsism. If you're going to be holding with empiricism as the standard for holding a belief, because then we get into prove to me through empiricism that empiricism is true, for example, or that empiricism is useful. Use science to prove science, kind of thing.
Yeah,
and that's the reason why that comes up, is that to get out of the
right?
empiricism. Say what?
I'm agreeing with you. You can find yourself into a weird little Cartesian thing when you
right.
start investigating. So I guess okay, maybe I should try a different approach, but I want to make sure I didn't leave any questions unanswered. Are there any questions that you asked that I need to answer that I've left out before I try a different approach here?
I don't think so. I think
okay.
If you want to go with a
have
different
you felt
approach,
that I've attacked you as a person?
No, I don't think so. I think that I like challenging conversations. This is challenging conversations.
Good. Good.
I think that.
So, like, if I jump in, like, fuck you, that's okay. Or
no, step it up.
No,
I didn't hear what you said, despite all the echoing and loudness.
It was a fuck you. I was just kidding. Anyway,
fuck you too, buddy.
I'm getting me one of those motherfuckers. I am getting me one of those motherfuckers.
Right. Hey, you know what? There's a fallback, right? But have you considered fuck you? But
it's a great retort, isn't it? It works for a lot of things. It's so universal.
I hear your point. I understand it, but I just want to retort with "go fuck yourself." Yeah.
Right. No.
It's the most versatile phrase in the English.
We need a soundboard.
So I guess the next question is maybe I should put some stakes behind it. Do you believe anything happens to you after you die?
I'm agnostic on the afterlife. I think that we've actually had this conversation. It was in the initial conversation that we had. That as far as the tradition that I ascribe to, there are some there's some beliefs about the afterlife that kind of come packaged with it, which would be Valhalla, the Helheim Folkvang, and a few other places. But those are things that it doesn't matter to me whether or not there's an afterlife. I think that's the, if it's true, great, whatever. But I also find eternal life to be kind of daunting. So I'm more interested in focusing on what matters in this life here rather than the afterlife. I know that the belief in Valhalla does matter to a lot of people that are heathen, specifically soldiers.
Well, not just that.
On the battlefield, their friends have died and so on and such as. And so dying gloriously in battle stirs a place in Valhalla. that's a place where they get to drink with their fallen comrades when they die eventually. So
right. So what if I got to tell you that our views are so very different, because if I were looking at a possibility of eternal life, of never dying, that would be way more important than the tiny amount of time that I'm on this rock. So why the fuck are you saying it's not that important?
Because I think that this life is important enough. If there's a
in scale, it's nothing.
So I think that it matters more to the Christian, and I think that it's something that is more interesting to discuss with a Christian, because they hold that if there is an afterlife, that there's specific things that you have to do and believe in order to get there. With heathens, Helheim is a kind of a catch-all. Valhalla has a very specific sort of thing, so does Folkvang, and so do some of the other afterlives that are described, like Niflheim and a few others. But with as far as the heathen, afterlife, as far as like there being one, is a meaningless standard when it comes to the human experience. We're all going to be getting into the afterlife according to heathenry, and there's no aside from Niflheim, for people that are oath breakers or betrayers, there isn't really a punishment afterlife beyond that. And what are the standards of going into Niflheim is very like kind of wiggly. So that's one of the reasons why I just don't care about it. If you live your life honestly and with good intentions, you're probably going to wind up in Helheim.
Okay.
Now,
so
the Christian,
are there any stakes
as far as whether or not it exists? It's not something that's an interesting debate for me. It's
okay. Are there any
true,
stakes?
Then great, I have eternal life. If it's not, then fine.
I got it. Are there any stakes that make you? No. You're continuing. I'm good. As long as you're good, I'm good, brother. So, really, honestly, man, as long as if you're good talking at the end, I understand you. We're communicating. That's fine.
Yeah.
The thing that I want to move forward in, though, is, does it matter at all whether or not it's true or false, your beliefs? Because if there's no stakes, if there's nothing important, so important that you need to know whether it's true or not,
there's a reason why I'm not an evangelist.
Why?
The main thing that I try and do in conversations is to just kind of present the ideas and at least hold that polytheism can be a respectable position. I'm not interested in converting people unless they're genuinely interested in jumping into it, which I have had some of those conversations where after a conversation, I'll get a couple of messages saying like, what are some sources? I want to kind of explore this concept. Or I've been feeling kind of drawn to this. Can you send me some texts? And I'm like, cool. And I send them some stuff. It's a very passive evangelism, if it can even be called that. Because as far as I'm concerned, your belief or disbelief in the gods doesn't necessarily punish you as far as like an eternal damnation kind of respect. It's something that I think you could, if you the religion has usefulness as far as engaging with life. There's utilitarian value to it. I think that it enhances determination. That's something that I've seen numerous times with heathens, is that they're extremely determined people. And that's something I routinely find to be impressive. And it has the reason for that has to do directly with the religion. It has net benefits when it comes to just utility.
A lot of religions can have benefits. I have a problem with magical thinking, Ocean. It's the magical thinking that I'm talking about.
We kind of like jumping around with that. And from a rational perspective, I'm trying to figure out where the problem is. Because then that's when we're going to get right back into that personal experience and solipsism problem.
You're yet to convince me that it's a respectable position.
Okay.
You're saying you want people to look at polytheism as a respectable position. I do not respect that. Let me give you an example. My uncle, is dying right now. He's dying of cancer. He's dying of lung cancer. It's incredibly painful and incredibly slow. And it's a process that he's been going through for several years, right? He's a wonderful person. He's going through a lot of pain. He lives in Germany. I don't think he's ever going to watch this, which is why I'm giving more info here than I would on Talk Heathen. But in Germany, people get away with a lot more woo out there. And there are people who call themselves doctors who purport that they can cure his cancer with homeopathy, right? And so they bring in all of these different. We can demonstrate
that to be wrong, though,
right? Hold on, Ocean. Let him finish his thought.
I understand that.
Just let him.
Sure.
I know we'll get to you. We'll get to you. Just let him finish his thought.
You can demonstrate some things to be wrong, but if somebody says my headache was cured because of homeopathy, that's their experience. That's when it matters. That's why I can't say that just a person's personal experience is enough to be okay for me to respect the things that come afterward. There needs to be that testing. And in the same way that you want to be able to test that, right? That is a kind of magical thinking that is similar to what you're talking about. And it has drained my uncle's life savings. He owned multiple restaurants, right? It has taken away his ability to get chemotherapy or radiation treatment, right? He's beyond that point. And he's scared and he's afraid of pain. And they preyed on his fear of radiation and chemotherapy to try and hawk him a whole bunch of bullshit that took out everything that he's worked for his entire life, right? You meet this man and you want to cry because he's one of the nicest human beings ever. And yes, I'm biased. But the reason I bring up this
understand that position entirely. I would be probably just as angry as you are about that.
It's enough to make a significant part of my life about why it is important not to have magical thinking. And if someone says, I had this personal experience, unless it's something that we can work to verify, I don't want to give it any more credence than, okay, you believe that thing, that's fine. But if someone's going to make a medical decision about it, if someone is going to be saying, I made a life decision based off of something that I can't prove even exists, like those are things that I want to quash out of existence. And while I think that this has had a huge impact on you, I do not yet respect that kind of personal experience. And I'm trying to share this with you so you understand why I'm coming at it from this direction. I'm not trying to be obtuse here, Ocean. I'm trying to give you an example of why that is such a big deal. Because I don't care if it just makes you, if it's a personal thing, right? Like I care
from
that
the homeopathy perspective. Yeah, I mean, I reflect your anger about homeopathy and alternative medicine, anti-vaxxers, these kind of things. And that's something that, I think we're on the same side on regarding that, because we're talking about something that it can be empirically verified that these things are very bad treatment decisions. And that's something that should definitely be quashed out. When it comes to religious belief, though, it's not the same kind of claim. And I think that it can be used in a way that abuses the similar kind of things, like with some of the other things that we mentioned, such as Jonestown. But, when we're talking about something like treatment of a physical ailment, that's something that you want to default to the empirical conversation. And even when it comes to belief in things, you want to default to the empirical conversation. The problem with the empirical conversation regarding religious belief is that the empirical conversation doesn't comment on gods. It's versus the conversation about homeopathy, in which it does comment on that. It comments on anti-vaxxers. It comments on homeopathy. And
so why the non-overlapping magisteria?
The what?
Why the non-overlapping magisteria? How come empiricism does not equate or is not applicable to a religious belief? Why? So if I were to say, Ocean, tomorrow we came up with an empirical proof that your view of religion is empirically true, are you saying you would reject that if I were to come out with empirical proof and say, I have shown empirically that Thor and Odin and, Freya, the world tree, all of these things are true? Would you continue to stand behind that point? Would you continue to say that no?
You can show empirically that they're true. I'd want to know how first, because I think that I referenced a conversation I had with King Crocoduck on this a couple of times. That if you want to suppose the godoscope, that there's a telescope of some kind in which you can observe the goings-ons of gods, then you can build an ontology for them. Then they become natural. They're not supernatural anymore. We can build a naturalistic ontology for them. At that point, sure, given some kind of technological advancement, empiricism would be able to comment. Currently, it can't, though. So if tomorrow you come up with some kind of way of empirically proving the gods, then great. The conversation about religion has changed dramatically at that point. But that would be a dramatic change, you agree?
Well, I think it would be the beginning of me taking it seriously.
Okay. With the conversation about homeopathy and vaccines, if I say, give me empirical proof against these beliefs, that's easy, right?
Well, not all of them,
come up with studies upon studies that show that this treatment is not effective.
But playing devil's advocate here, the point is you can't prove all of them wrong, and all someone who wants to believe in it needs is want, right? I mean, if
they have that desire, then sure, I agree with you.
Right.
That's when these practices are preying upon people that are gullible at the time or something like that. Right.
So would you say that are there any heathens in your community that think that there has been a tangible outreach from a deity in their pantheon into their lives in a physical, manifested way? And would you think that
I haven't heard
is
of the physical manifestation, but I wouldn't is there a person who believes that? Probably. It's not somebody that I've engaged with, but I think that I've talked to a lot of pagans before, and sometimes I hear things.
You're my expert, brother.
Yeah. But as far as a physical interaction, there's some physical interactions that are described in the sagas, for example, such as Odin appearing as an old man, famously during the battle with Harold Bluetooth, and where he is an old man with one eye that clubs the king to death.
That's badass.
I don't know.
Do you think that's a true thing that happened?
I am not even sure whether or not the battle happened. So I think that the battle did happen, but Harold Wartooth died during the battle. But it is a matter of historical record that Odin killed him. It's not something as far as examining it from a historian's perspective. Historians are not supposed to be taking in things that they can't explain and putting it as a matter of the historical narrative. So we would assume that Harold Wartooth died by some other means than Odin himself killing him.
Sure.
From a religious perspective, it's something that I'm agnostic about. From a if you want to look at it as a professional historian, though, you would discount that as a supernatural explanation for something that happened as far as historical narrative, because you're not going to be able to use it because you can't explain how it works.
Do you agree with that assessment, or do you think that science should change it the way
from a historical
that it
perspective
interacts with it? Yeah.
From a historical perspective, I agree with that. Now,
so why do you agree with?
We're talking about a study. Is I think that personal spirituality and the study of history are different things. So.
Not if they live in the same true world. They're not. Not if they're in the same objective reality that we're a part of.
Could you explain some events in history through embracing the supernatural narratives? Sure. But I think that the standard that we put forward of examining what we include in the historical narrative by understanding it versus not understanding it is a good system as far as being able to build a body of knowledge. With regards to personal spirituality, it's whether or not you trust the experiences that you've had and whether or not you agree with arguments that are made for polytheism. And those are two very different things. You can philosophically hold that polytheism is true with good reason. If you want
you keep saying that word, but I don't know if that word means what you think it means.
Okay.
Sorry, I love the Princess Bride. I'm the only one. Fuck you guys. All right.
No, you're not. No, you're not. I caught that as well. Of course, I did.
So you keep saying, that it's a respectable worldview.
This is like an extended Talk Heathen call-in.
It is.
He's restreaming this right now on Talk Heathens Live. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
That'd be awesome, actually.
So that would be kind of cool. It'd be like Inception,
right? Oh, but it would go through. This is already Heathenception, Ocean. We've done it.
It is. I have so many questions.
Just have different senses having this conversation.
There's so much to unpack
I actually,
here.
no, the funny story, when I first heard about Talk Heathen, I was like, is this a pagan show? And I tuned in and I was like, this is not a pagan show. Eventually, when I
those bastards
for about 10 minutes, I was like, these guys are like taking my fucking word. But,
false advertising.
Right? Reclaim it.
Clickbait.
That curly fuck
As
on
you've
the
been
right,
talking,
man.
As you've been talking, I have literally been writing down question after question after question after question, because every time you get off on a new...
We've been locking horns so much that we need to take a break every once in a while.
Well, see, the thing is, you've almost been going for an hour and a half, surprisingly enough.
Holy shit!
We usually keep them at 2 hours, so we're nearing the end.
But don't feel bad. I've known Ocean a very.
We might have to do a sequel.
Ocean, have I not known you a very long time? And I still have questions for you, right?
Yeah,
are you in Texas?
Steve and I have known each other.
Texas?
I'm not.
Right.
I can, if you want to have like a sit down. Okay.
And a beer
in Austin,
or 12. Right? Oh fuck yeah!
Okay.
Do you think I would go anywhere else?
We should have all done that now.
Even after all these years,
I can wind up in Austin, Texas for a little while. I've got a couple of friends there. There's a comic book artist that I know over there. There's I've got a couple of good friends there. So
Eric, did you have anything that you wanted to since we are getting kind of I want to make sure that you get all your questions covered before I ask my 19.
Well, it's just a few.
We're kind of at impasse.
Observations. Yeah, I mean, the observation that I have is that when it comes to logic, you're very well read. When it comes to historicity, you've got your shit down. But I wonder why you have such lower standards for yourself than for other things that you're well read on. And I don't understand that, because it feels like you will hold other things to a high standard, but personal experience gets to slide under the bar. And I just don't see you're following through with the standard that you hold for everything else in your life. And I'm baffled by it. That's all I have to say.
I think that if I was standing there at the battle where Harald Wartooth was killed by Odin and actually saw it take place, I would say it should be a matter of historical record. It fucking happened. But I would be
creaming my pants. I would have grown a second dick just to cream my pants. It's so badass. But I don't. but I don't think that.
And we're demonetized.
I just don't think that. Fuck you, YouTube.
Yeah, we're done. The show's over.
Patreon.com/NonSequitur.
It's the only way we can get past it, guys. Get it done.
You know what? I think we can continue this at another time. But I've had a blast. So if you want to take it, brother, go for it.
Well, I really just have three pertinent questions.
Go for it.
Number one. Okay, so you said that you're agnostic towards the afterlife, right? Okay.
Right.
So why go through it anyway? What's the benefit that you get out of going through the practices and trying to adhere to a religion? Why not just do your own thing if it all just kind of doesn't matter in the end?
I think I'll go through two responses to that.
Sure.
That I've given in the past. One is that I think that if it was empirically shown that the gods are not real, or of some other kind of proof, like say that it was shown to be incoherent philosophically or something, I would still be interested in following the traditions. And the reason that I would still be interested in following the traditions from like an archetypal sort of standpoint, like very Jungian approach, I would be, I'm interested in the benefits that the religion gives. That determination that I was talking about earlier is something that I think is incredibly valuable. And I also think that it gives a connection between the person who is participating in the religion and their past. There's a lot about ancestor veneration in the religion, and there's a lot about kind of like understanding yourself and the flaws in yourself and embracing them or combating them within the religion that are hugely important. It focuses on not relying upon the gods to help you in a situation, but relying upon yourself and the gods for inspiration in states of challenge. So there's a lot of personal empowerment that kind of comes from that. So if a heathen is examining something like homeopathy or anti-vax or something like that, the heathen should look at it as this is something that is within our power to observe, our power to find out, and it's not, we're not supposed to depend on the supernatural in order to give us the answers to these things. So let's investigate and find out. And that's something that's, I think, is a similar approach, at least to a scientific approach, and that it's in our hands to figure these things out. And the same thing applies to morality, that morality is in our hands. We're the ones to kind of to figure out how to deal with interacting with one another, how to construct society. And I think these are valuable positions to hold as a human. And
I guess
it gives us a strong cultural connection. So like ultimately, that the short answer to what you're saying is there's a usefulness to it, a utilitarian approach that I find to be very valuable. Okay. And there's a lot of people that are part of our group that are atheist and do see the religion this way. And I think that's a respectable position.
I guess what I was trying to point out is that, you know, with Christianity, you can only get salvation through Christianity. There's not a parallel there in your religion. Right. Like there's nothing that being a heathen can offer you that you can't get anywhere else. You know what I'm saying? It may be a different
like I was saying, you can be an atheist and a heathen at the same time. That's fine.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So my next question is, how did you? Let me see. How did you arrive at? I'm trying to figure out the gods thing. Walk me through that. How, like, what do you do in terms of? I don't want to say worship, if that's what you do, but like, is there a certain thing that you do for Odin and then for Thor, and how do they incorporate themselves like in your daily life?
We're pretty focused on, so there's, this gets more into the kind of some of the things that I wanted to talk about on the show. I think a lot of time was spent on the epistemology aspect, but as far as like how we practice is something that's really,
I don't do epistemology, so
yeah, I know. So it's that word. Oh no, don't shut down the show, Kyle. I said it. I just said it as a descriptor. So
can we do the Pee-wee's Playhouse? Right, the word of the day. Yay! No,
that's
fine.
That's exactly what happened.
Like Elmo just starts screaming.
If I wasn't strapped into the seat, that's what would happen.
Okay, go ahead.
You guys to let me loose. Go ahead.
So, damn it. The question was about. So practice for what kind of practices do we do? So there's, as far as the group is concerned, there's a monthly event that we call a bloat. That is a group gathering in which we pay homage and honor to one of the gods. And you're getting out the damn spaghetti monster. I'm gonna kill you. Where's
Don't look at my shit.
Anyway, so
that's awesome, actually.
Damn it. Okay, so heathens are very focused on orthopraxy versus orthodoxy. We're focused on orthopraxy versus orthodoxy. Orthopraxy is going to be correct practice. Orthodoxy is correct belief. Christianity is a very orthodoxic religion in which they're very focused on what your opinion is. With heathenry, it's more about your actions, what you do. And you can believe in the gods in a myriad of different ways and still be considered heathen. Like our group, for example, has people that ascribe belief to completely different gods or ascribe their archetypal importance to completely different gods. Like there's people that ascribe to Slavic entities, which has a completely different cosmology than most other heathens, or most other heathenries. So, like these kind of people that believe in different things can get together and agree on practice, an attitude, and approach, and be fine. Now,
Gotcha.
It gets into a little bit different. We're talking about like what our beliefs actually are, but we can have a group of disagreeing people, and as long as we're in agreement on what is right action.
And I think we'll have to have I think we should do another like a episode just on that aspect of it, because I'm interested to dive deeper into that. I guess to sum it up,
Sure.
here's what I think.
That's a huge topic.
Yeah, here's what I think. It's a badass religion on its face, because you have Odin and Thor and
a whole bunch
Vikings
of really cool guys named Eric.
Yeah, and it like I can see the attraction to it. It's a lot different on a, it's kind of like the Greek religion with Zeus and Apollo and all that. Like there's a certain kind of attraction to that, and I guess where I was coming from was I can understand why go through the motions if it doesn't really matter in the end. You answered that, but I guess from where you were coming from, what I got was that it's a community thing. Like you're connected to.
There is a huge community
like-minded
to it.
Yeah, you're connected to
like,
like-minded
I was
people.
pagan for years. I was pagan for years without a community. So
yeah, I understand that.
I was pagan. I was heathen specifically for about 8 years before I even started looking for a community. And I eventually found one and joined one, then left that one, and eventually started my own with 9 other people. And that group has gotten a lot of good attention from the heathen community in Atlanta. And when we hold an event, there's a ton of people that all have been looking for a source of community, because often we do practice alone. And being able to provide a community for people that have been alone in that context is hugely rewarding.
And that's all that I was trying to find the balance between where does the importance land on the spiritual side and when does it land on the community side, because it seems like it's more so dipping on the community side than it is your spirit, because Christianity is all about saving your soul. Like when you die, you want to have a heaven to go to. You don't want to go to hell. It's a deterrent from behavior. But I can see the attraction to it. I can't understand it, and I'm still baffled. But
sure,
I get it.
I want to do like a summary of kind of heathenry for a second. That is, kind of Jesus style with 2 rules.
Before you do that, let me. I'm gonna let you close out with that. But I kind of want to. I think Steve had something he wanted to do with, or ask Eric, so we can get him in real quick, and then we'll when we close out, we'll let you kind of sum it up for us and close us out.
Yeah, I've got kind of 2 main points that I want to bring up a little bit. One, Eric, obviously sorry to hear about your uncle. My cousin also has cancer, but she's very religious, but she's also into the getting prayer and listening to her doctors, right? So it's unfortunate when people do fall into quackery. I do empathize with that. But I think there's something to be said, and I think Ocean was maybe kind of referring to this a little bit. I'm a non-evidentialist. I don't think that empiricism must be the only way to justify certain people's beliefs. I do think that you can have things like pragmatism or prudentialism, such as if I had a doctor telling me we have this experimental medicine that can help you with your cancer or whatever. We don't know for sure if it is. Are you then epistemically justified to believe that medicine will help you prudentially, because we have known that people with positive outlooks going through treatment do better, even though there's not an empirical reason to hold that belief, right? So that's one point when it comes to the epistemics that I think maybe Ocean was referring to. And the other thing that I have to ask, because I've got just get them out of the way and then you guys can close. The second thing is, to Ocean, when you're talking about these feelings, when you're talking about these emotions and these sensory things that you've had, I think that even Eric would agree. Everybody's had things that we would think along those lines. We've had experiences maybe we all can't explain. I think that's ubiquitous among humankind.
Like yesterday.
I think the problem, yesterday was a totally spiritual experience of some kind. Just probably not the ones that we would want to have. Yeah.
What was it? 27 conspiracy theories you counted, Kyle?
33.
27.
Everything was 33. It's funny. We did actually end on 33 after the hour. How weird is that?
Yeah, that's why
we're not confirmed.
But there are weird big balls, by the way. Huge balls.
You know what? His left meatball is bigger than the right, but we don't body shame, right? I mean, it's important to know that.
Right? Biology.
That's right. That's right.
No biology. But when we all have these experiences, what I have a difficult time doing, because again, I've had some experiences similar to what you're describing. Only I don't go to Odin. I don't go to whatever. It is difficult to make a belief position come from just having experiences, because I don't see the warrant to relate the data, the experience, to the justification of holding that belief, right? Because unless there's a being that came down to you and said, "Hi, I am Odin," that's fine. Then you have justificatory reason, right? I'm telling you right now, if you told me,
are you talking about that relation between? Yeah. You're talking about between the experience and tradition.
Everybody has this experience, but everybody seems to have a different reason why we have these experiences. Some people think they're completely natural. Some people are not sure if they're natural. Some people think there might be some kind of supernatural, right? Or drug related, or all in the brain, dualism, whatever. There's a lot of different possible explanations for these things. There's no way to really verify, and this is what Eric pointed out, which one is true. And we all like having true beliefs. And I think maybe Eric was arguing it's kind of maybe arbitrary of why people end up on the belief they do, just because we all have this experience. These experiences. Would that be a good solution? It's a fair assessment, but because I've dealt with that crisis myself, obviously.
I definitely would love to. I definitely would love to push back and have a nice, long, heated talk with you about empiricism. But we can do that another day.
That sounded really hot when you said that, actually, by the way. Can I just say? That sounded really hot. I just want to have a really big, long talk with you.
I was waiting to see where he's going with that.
I've got a throbbing question.
I can tell you right now, I'm more human. I think rationalism and empiricism are both equally valid. I think we all use both to acquire knowledge. I don't think it's one or the other. Simple as that. But I also think we have a priori beliefs as well in knowledge that comes to us without having any kind of sense.
Are we getting into the E word? Am I gonna have to pull the plug?
I'm gonna avoid the E word. No, I don't want to get Eric excited more than he already is.
If you say it, it's gonna be a problem.
Yes. Okay. Now,
I think I made my point without mentioning the E word.
I'm gonna let these two.
You made your point. You made your point.
These two fine gentlemen wrap up their positions and plug whatever they need to. Talk about what they've got coming up. Who wants to go first?
Go ahead, Ocean.
I guess. All right.
Go ahead, Ocean.
I guess the summary of heathenry that I wanted to make is that, like, as far there's a number of texts that we have, not least of which is the Havamal, which is the sayings of Odin, which I think is a great read for anybody who wants to kind of pick it up. But I think that the summary of that text is essentially that the heathen should be the best example of a person that they can be, and strive with determination towards their goals, and then use that to help their community as much as possible. And I think that those two oughts that kind of you derive from the Havamal are very important when approaching heathenry. That being said, Ocean Keltoi, I'm on Twitter as @Ocean Keltoi, KELTOI, and if you want to message me there about joining one of our heathen discords, shoot me a message on Twitter or @ me on Twitter, and I'm happy to discuss these ideas with anybody who wants to. I've known to get a little contentious on Twitter about it, though, sometimes with certain people.
Yeah, if you know any dumpster fires on Twitter, be sure to tag Ocean Keltoi. He loves being tagged into the biggest dumpster fire.
Oh God, no!
Can I ask you a question?
You tagged me, and it went on for days. And the person
I've tagged you
talking about never
I've
responded.
tagged you on ones that have literally been going on for a year. Okay.
Does your Viking discords in the discords that you guys, your heathen discords, do you go and invade like other discords and
I wish,
pillage
but
like
no,
you used to? Okay,
we don't not to do that.
That would be awesome. Can you do that?
There might be a
do some
program that we
Viking
start,
shit.
but I don't, that's
exactly.
for now.
Do
The
some Viking shit.
the doing Viking shit that we do involves burning shit in the woods and saying "Hail Odin."
That's a good slogan, actually.
Horn of mead out
Heathens,
into
do some Viking shit.
See, I'm totally cool with that. I'm down with that. I'm there. I would totally do that shit. Doesn't mean I have to believe it. Just be fun.
Oh yeah.
You come down to Georgia, Steve. Let me know. We'll invite you to a bloat. You can have a good time.
Fuck yes.
Vikings in Georgia. Vikings in Georgia. Okay. And now, Eric, take us home.
All right. So again, thank you all so much for having me out here. Ocean, this was an absolute blast. I totally want to have more talks with you because I think we could do this forever. And I actually would love to just talk about this kind of thing forever. Steve, you're cool too.
I'm totally in. So
I love you, Sugar Lump. So what I want to tell you is I am one of the hosts of Talk Heathen. Talk Heathen is the sister show of the Atheist Experience and a bunch of other things like Godless Bitches and the nonprofits that come out of the ACA. I am actually the director of communications for the organization, but it is a nonprofit, so it doesn't make a lot of money. I get 20 hours a week. So we actually launched a Patreon, and it does go straight to the organization that goes to a whole bunch of amazing nonprofit work, but also it could possibly potentially help move me to full time so that I can stop couch surfing every time I have to come out here to do this. So if you would like to support the things that we do at the ACA and specifically Talk Heathen, please go to patreon.com/Ocean. You're going to like this. Talk Heathen to me. That's patreon.com/Talk Heathen to me. And we'd really, really appreciate it. I know, right?
Is everything dirty with you people? Is everything dirty?
God, I have been so turned on by this talk the entire time.
You'd like it. You know you'd like it. Until then, I am Eric Murphy. And it's been an honor to be here. Thank you so much.
And we will link that Patreon in the description too as well for you to find it there. So thank you, gentlemen, both. Fantastic talk. Fuck you, Steve. We'll see everybody else tomorrow at 8 o'clock.
There is no pod. There you go. There's your hot talk, Eric. I want to get you all worked up.